Marcus Hale wasn't the type to ask questions. He followed protocol, filed his reports, and never once made headlines. A straight-laced field agent with 12 years under his belt and a spotless service record. That's exactly why they chose him. April 12, 2001. Hale is dispatched to rural Montana. A call from Quantico marked the file Level 2 low priority. The kind of job you sent rookies on, except Marcus wasn't a rookie. The official request came from the Helena Field Office, an abandoned bunker near Black Pine Ridge. Trespassers, vandalism, maybe squatters. The kind of nothing case that never makes it past a footnote. Hale didn't protest. He packed a small overnight bag, left a voicemail for his wife Leah, and told the front desk he'd be back in 2 days. He never was. The drive to Black Pine takes about 6 hours from Bozeman, longer with snow. Hale left at 10:42 a.m. He stopped once for gas in Great Falls. The clerk remembered him polite, quiet, bought a coffee and 3 packs of gum. Surveillance footage confirmed it. After that, Marcus vanished. No more confirmed sightings. The next day, when he missed a scheduled check-in, no one panicked. Agents miss calls all the time. Cell service is patchy in the mountains. But by day 3, when his phone still pinged dead and there was no word from local enforcement, the Bureau activated internal protocol. Case reassignment, field shutdown, quiet inquiry. No public statement. No bolo. Because officially, Marcus Hale hadn't gone missing. He had simply stepped off the grid. What they didn't say is what made it strange. Hale was working alone, no partner, no escort, no backup. And the case file, the one marked low priority, was now inaccessible to everyone below clearance level 5. Even his supervising agent couldn't access it. Someone had sealed it. Marcus's wife Leah called the office 3 times before someone finally answered. They told her he was delayed, technical issues. She didn't believe them. And she was right not to. Because 3 days later, a hunter found Hale's SUV on a narrow trail near the base of Black Pine Ridge. Engine still warm, driver door open, and no sign of Marcus Hale. It was an unmarked path. Locals called it a fire break, but it hadn't seen a blaze in years. A single lane of churned snow and gravel winding between pine trunks and rising terrain. No reason for a Bureau vehicle to be there, no reason for anyone. Marcus Hale's SUV sat tilted, 2 wheels sunk into a frost-lined ditch, the others dusted in late spring powder. Engine idling when it was found, then dead hours later from fuel starvation. The keys still in the ignition, driver's seat pulled far back, like he'd left in a hurry. But there were no footprints, no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no blood, just silence. The hunter who reported I'd a man named Dennis Marlowe told officers the truck spooked him. It wasn't just the way it was left, he said. It was the stillness, like the woods were watching. Marlowe waited 40 minutes before calling the sheriff. By then, the SUV's battery had drained. Inside the vehicle, Hale's Bureau badge in the glove box, sidearm holstered, untouched, notebook on the passenger seat with only one word scribbled across the top page, South. Trunk, empty, no overnight bag, no gear. Search teams canvassed the surrounding woods. Dogs brought in, nothing. Helicopters scanned the ridge and nearby ravines. Still nothing. That evening, the SUV was airlifted out. By the next morning, local authorities were no longer allowed access to the case. And the federal response? Muted. No press release, no public alert. Just a vague statement read at a regional office meeting, Agent Hale has been reassigned indefinitely. But within FBI channels, whispers started. An agent with no history of instability, no red flags, no debts, no enemies. Gone without a trace. Then the logs disappeared, his travel logs, radio records, all scrubbed from the system within 48 hours of his disappearance. When a tech assistant asked about it, they were told, that case no longer exists. But Leah Hale knew better. She remembered the way Marcus had looked the week before he left. Tense, distracted, eyes tired like he hadn't slept. He'd said something strange over dinner. If anything happens out there, Don't let them close the file. She didn't understand it then. Now she wasn't sure she ever would. Officially, Marcus Hale worked white-collar crime, financial fraud, ID theft, paper trails, and spreadsheets. But 6 months before he vanished, that changed, quietly. No internal announcement, no formal reassignment, just a slow drift into something darker. He started pulling case files that had nothing to do with his division: environmental violation reports, CDC incident memos, obscure communications flagged Bio has 3 in subject lines. Most were redacted beyond comprehension, but Marcus kept reading, kept printing. His partner at the time, Agent Ross, said Marcus became withdrawn. He stopped coming to Friday briefings, started skipping lunch, stayed in the evidence room for hours. When Ross asked what was going on, Marcus just said, "There's something wrong in Montana." No one pressed. Not at first. But behind the scenes, Hale was building a map, pins, threads, all leading to a facility near the Bitterroot Range, officially decommissioned. But Marcus didn't believe that. He'd started referring to something called Protocol Scepter, a containment directive, possibly military, possibly not. He never clarified. He kept a leather-bound notebook with him at all times, scribbled codes, coordinates, names. One page was just a list of dates followed by 2-letter acronyms: CF, TM, KP, MH. No one could decode them. 3 weeks before he left, his supervisor flagged his activity. Hale had accessed a classified document repository without proper clearance. Internal Affairs opened a quiet inquiry. The report was never filed. Suppressed, closed, no action taken. 2 weeks before the trip, Marcus moved out of the family house. Told Leah it was temporary, something about keeping her safe. She thought he was just stressed, maybe burned out. 1 week before he vanished, he changed his will. And in the final message he left on Leah's voicemail, time-stamped 6:40, 2 a.m., April 12th, he said just one thing: "If they say I ran, don't believe them." The missing persons report came 5 days after Marcus vanished. It was thin, barely a page. A brief note in the Bureau's internal bulletin: Agent Marcus Hale failed to return from an investigative trip in Montana. Considered missing, circumstances unclear. Ongoing review. There was no media coverage, no press conference, no public appeal. Most agents didn't even hear about it until weeks later. Those who asked questions were told it was an internal matter. But behind closed doors, something stranger happened. Marcus's name began to disappear. In the Bureau's personnel system, his status was quietly marked inactive, administrative hold. In the digital archive, his case reports were refiled under temporary tags, then deleted. Shared folders that once bore his ID returned blank. His desk was cleared by noon the following Monday. One junior analyst noticed her email threads with Hale had vanished. Server logs confirmed it, auto-purged, as if they'd never existed. When she asked IT, they said the deletion came from Level 6 security admin. She didn't know what that meant. She stopped asking. Marcus's badge number was quietly retired. His login credentials revoked without standard deactivation protocol. In the agency cafeteria, agents said his name like a rumor, a ghost in an empty chair. Even Leah noticed the change. When she called Marcus's old office, the line rang twice, then rerouted. When she emailed his supervisor, it bounced. When she showed up in person, security asked her to leave. "We can't comment on personnel issues," they said. It wasn't grief. It was erasure. And somewhere in the basement archive of Quantico, a box labeled "Mach Do Not Disclose" was quietly sealed and shelved without record. Not archived, not declassified, not even logged. Just buried. Leah Hale waited 12 days before calling the press. It wasn't a decision she made lightly. She'd spent the first week in silence, answering polite calls from friends, sitting through awkward visits from bureau liaisons who offered no answers, only condolences. They told her Marcus was likely delayed, possibly off-grid. Investigators were working around the clock. She didn't believe any of it, because Marcus had told her something 2 nights before he left. "They're watching the watchers," he'd whispered, staring through the blinds like he expected someone to be there. "It's not just surveillance, it's something else." At first, Leah thought it was stress. He hadn't been sleeping, hadn't been eating. The bags under his eyes were deep enough to hold a story he wouldn't tell. She found shredded papers in the sink, maps in his jacket, and a locked briefcase he refused to explain. One night, he spent 4 hours driving aimlessly around the Beltway, headlights off. But the day before he left for Montana, he changed. Calmer, resolved. Like he knew something was coming and had already made peace with it. "He kissed me on the forehead," Leah told the reporter, like someone saying goodbye. When Marcus didn't return, Leah waited. When the bureau gave her nothing, she reached out to a local paper. Quietly, off the record. But within 24 hours, she was sitting across from a reporter from the Herald Tribune, hands folded tightly in her lap, voice barely above a whisper. "My husband was scared," she said. "Not of someone, of something." She told them about the journal, the weird symbols, the name Scepter written over and over again in the margins. She told them about the unmarked vans that parked across from their house at night, the clicks on the phone line, the camera that stopped working the day he left. She told them everything. The article ran 2 days later under the headline, "FBI Agent Missing, Wife Believes He Was Being Watched." It spread fast, news blogs picked it up, forums lit up with theories. But 3 hours after the article went live, it was pulled from every major news site. The Tribune issued no explanation. And Leah's phone stopped ringing. "There's a gas station near Route 12, about 9 miles from where Marcus's SUV was found. One of those aging, flickering, fluorescence and dust kind of places where the coffee burns and the receipt papers always jammed. A 2-pump stop barely clinging to relevance. Marcus Hale was seen there at 3:47 p.m. on April 12th. It was his last confirmed appearance. The clerk remembered him, said he looked tired but focused, bought a gallon of water, a pack of gum, and asked if the area had seen any service outages. Then he stepped outside and, according to the register time, Stamp stood in the lot for 8 full minutes, pacing in small circles. That same clerk also remembered something else. A black sedan pulled in minutes later. Tinted windows, government plates. A man in a dark suit stepped out and approached Marcus. They spoke briefly. Then they argued. It wasn't loud, the clerk told local police, but it looked tense. Security footage confirmed it. Marcus standing beside Pump 2. The suited man, close. Faces blurred but body language unmistakable. Hale pointing. The man placing a hand on his shoulder. Hale pulling away. Then abruptly both turned toward the camera. And that's where the footage ends. 3 days later, federal agents showed up. Not local FBI, not state police, no insignia, no names. They flashed something, took the tapes, and left without a word. The gas station owner asked for a receipt. He didn't get one. When the clerk called to follow up, he was told the tapes had been redirected for federal processing. They were never returned. Rumors began almost immediately. That the man in the suit was CIA, that Marcus wasn't supposed to be there, that he'd stumbled into something sealed and buried long before he ever stepped foot in Montana. One online theory claimed the footage showed more. A third figure, blurred, watching from the tree line. Some swore there was audio muffled yelling, then a static burst that fried the feed. None of it was ever confirmed, because the tapes were gone. What was left was a single clip leaked months later, a single frame. Marcus Hale, turning toward the camera, mouth open, eyes wide, and behind him, just barely visible in the reflection of his SUV window, a second set of eyes. April 12th, 2001. 7:13 p.m. The Bureau's Region 8 dispatcher logs a transmission from Field Unit 618, MH Marcus Hale's assigned call sign. The recording lasts 7 seconds. The first 2 are static, then his voice, ragged, rushed, barely cutting through the noise. "They know." A pause. "I found it." Then silence. The line remained open for another 11 seconds, the hiss of empty air filling the dispatch room. The operator repeated protocol, called his name twice, then switched channels. Nothing. No click. No disconnect. Just a low crackle that never stopped. The dispatcher marked it as unconfirmed distress. By the time they tried triangulating the signal, it was gone. Later analysis placed the origin somewhere between Devil's Backbone and Black Pine Ridge, a dead zone, where compasses spin and GPS glitches. Attempts to follow up went nowhere. Hales Radio, a hardened digital comm unit, never pinged again. Satellite relays found no signal, no location data. 3 days later, the tape was pulled from evidence. Labeled Interference Archived, it was moved from the regional server to a cold vault in D.C. without a requisition form. The audio was classified, sealed, and removed from agent briefings. But copies exist. One resurfaced 6 years later on a message board frequented by shortwave hobbyists. A user named Watchdog Levin posted a corrupted clip, grainy, distorted, but clear enough to hear the 2 words. They know. Within hours, the post was deleted. The account scrubbed. No one ever confirmed what Marcus had found. But that night, Leah sat alone on her porch, clutching the phone he'd left behind. She replayed his voicemail, just static. No voice, no words, just a faint rhythmic pulsing. 4 beats, a pause, then 4 again. Like code. Like a warning. His name was Tom Ridley, 49. Lived in a trailer on the edge of Racorn County. Retired forest ranger turned hobby hiker. Spent most days mapping old trails for a conservation blog no one really read. On April 12th, he filed an unofficial report with the local sheriff's office. Claimed he'd seen a man in a black parka hiking west of Pine Ridge. Alone, no pack, looked lost. I waved, he said, but he didn't wave back, just kept looking over his shoulder. He described the man as tall, built like a runner, short-cropped dark hair. Said the guy looked military. When shown a bureau-issued photo of Marcus Hale, Ridley said, "That's him, that's the guy." The report was never added to the file. 2 days later, Ridley gave a phone interview to a local reporter, told her he thought something was off, said the man wasn't hiking, he was hiding. "I know that, look," he said. He wasn't out there for the scenery. He was scheduled to meet with a private investigator the following week. He never made it. April 20th. Ridley is found dead near Tallman Creek. Shot through the chest with a hunting rifle. No weapon recovered. Sheriff's office calls it a tragic accident, says it's common during elk season. But locals whisper there'd been no elk drawn in that zone for weeks. His cabin is sealed, his laptop missing, his notebooks gone. The official coroner's report lists cause of death as accidental discharge. But the trajectory of the bullet center mass, downward angle, suggests something else. Something intentional. The reporter who'd spoken with Ridley tried to publish the interview. Her editor blocked it. Not verifiable, they said. Too close to a federal case. She quit the next day. But a week later, she received a package. No return address. Inside one of Ridley's trail maps, circled in red, a section of forest not found on any state registry. Scribbled in the margin, his last note. Saw him again, same ridge, not alone this time. It wasn't hidden, just tucked away. A thin black notebook wedged behind a dresser drawer, only discovered because Leah was looking for something else, Marcus's old watch, the one he wore when they first met. Instead, she found a journal that didn't match anything he'd ever kept. No dates on the cover, no title, just a crease-worn spine and corners curled with time. Inside, the handwriting was unmistakable. Marcus. But not the Marcus she knew. The entries weren't linear. Some were scribbled in jagged bursts, others written so precisely they looked rehearsed. Entire pages had been torn out. Ink bled through from pressing too hard. The first few entries looked normal travel logs, field notes, coordinates. Then the tone shifted. They're not who they say they are. 3 meetings in 7 days. Each one ends with more red tape. Protocol Scepter isn't a plan, it's a cover. The words scepter and subject class repeated over and over again, sometimes underlined, sometimes scratched out entirely. One page had a hand-drawn map of terrain, ridgelines, elevation notes, but with a section blacked out using permanent marker. The only visible word, Warden. Every few pages he'd list names. Some had full identifiers, others were just initials, but most had been violently redacted, literally scratched through with what looked like a knife. CF.AWLM. Removed, transferred, gone. What disturbed Leah most was the tone. Marcus didn't sound scared. He sounded resolved, like a man preparing to disappear, like someone leaving clues in case someone went looking. At the very back, pressed flat between two pages, was a photo. A blurred image, grainy and tilted, taken from the ground, looking up. A building rectangular, concrete, no windows. Painted in black across the top. Authorized personnel only, bio, level 4. She flipped the journal closed and just stared at it. And that's when the lights in her house flickered. Once. Then again. The first one appeared 4 days after Leah spoke to the Tribune. A white cargo van, no plates, parked across the street. It sat idling for 20 minutes, then drove off. No one got out, no one knocked. The next day, it was back. This time, black. Windows tinted, front end angled directly at her living room window. Neighbors noticed. Said they thought it was FBI surveillance, maybe protection. One of them waved at the driver, got no response. The third van showed up at night, parked at the far end of the street, engine off, headlights dead. Leah stopped sleeping. Her internet went down 2 days later. Then her landline cut out. She called her service provider from her cell phone. They said there were unexpected outages in your area. When she asked how long it would take, they didn't have an estimate. The outage lasted 15 days. Her cell phone started dropping calls. Text came in blank. One voicemail arrived with only static. Then the power went. 3 times in 1 week. Always between 1 and 3 a.m. Always followed by silence. And the vans kept coming. Sometimes they'd circle the block 3-4 times in an hour. Other times they'd just sit, motionless. Once, Leah walked outside with a flashlight, walked straight up to the passenger window of the black van, tapped once. The window rolled down halfway. The man inside wore sunglasses. At night. "Can I help you?" she asked. He didn't answer. Just rolled the window back up. When she turned to go back inside, her porch light blinked once, then burned out. The next morning she found tire tracks across her lawn, and nailed to her front door was a single piece of paper, no message, no return address. Just a hand-drawn eye. And beneath it, a single word, stop. The Freedom of Information Act request took 9 months to process. Leah had filed it under Marcus's name, requesting any documentation tied to his last known assignment. She didn't expect much. The Bureau had already sealed everything, buried it behind layers of red tape and vague denials. But when the envelope arrived thin, folded, marked with a federal stamp, there was one file inside, 1 page. The heading read, Asset Movement, Non-Standard Biological Storage, Site Echo 9. Beneath it, in typewritten text, Field Agent M. Hale, assigned to preliminary survey of Echo 9 site, May 2001. Target: decommissioned facility repurposed during late-stage Cold War operations. Affiliated programs include BioTrace, V-Scepter, and unnamed experimental protocol. Site Echo 9. Leah had never heard of it, neither had anyone else. She took the file to a contact, an ex-Intel analyst who now taught cryptography in Oregon. He read the page twice, then circled a line at the bottom. Further activity requires Level 7 containment status. No digital record authorized. Physical logs restricted. It wasn't just buried, it had been erased. But Echo 9 had a shadow. An unlisted location mentioned in a single declassified Department of Energy memo from 1993. A facility off Highway 93 in northern Montana, originally a fallout shelter, converted into a data vault, then again into something else. Rumors had always swirled around Echo sites. Most were urban legend. Echo 3 was blamed for strange weather over Nevada. Echo 6 allegedly housed prototype tech the Pentagon couldn't explain. But Echo 9, that one had never leaked, never shown up. Until now. The memo ended with a line that stuck with her. Biological anomalies stored under designation, Crypsis, unstable, monitor at 96-hour intervals. Marcus hadn't just been investigating a dead lab. He'd been sent to find something the government wanted forgotten, something unstable. And based on his journal, he found it. The leak came through a back channel forumbered on a page used by ex-intelligence contractors and disgruntled clearance junkies who spent their lives chasing secrets the government refused to admit existed. A single PDF, no metadata, no watermark, but stamped at the top in bold black letters, Operation Crypsis. Subheading, Internal Containment Protocol for Type 4, Biological Displacement Events. It read like a manual. Cold, clinical, precise, but the implications hit like a hammer. Crypsis wasn't about an outbreak. It wasn't a reaction plan. It was a defense mechanism for what happened when exposure had already occurred. The document described personnel isolation procedures, memory obfuscation techniques, the protocol to restructure narrative understanding for any individuals who had come into contact with unauthorized biological material exhibiting cognitive displacement. In simple terms, if someone saw it, they'd be made to forget or disappear. The file included multiple incident tags, dates, coordinates, many redacted, but one remained visible. March 4, 2001. Echo 9 breach containment failed. Recommend Hale for re-entry under silent protocol. They'd sent Marcus in after the fact. He wasn't there to investigate, he was there to clean up. The report mentioned terms Marcus had scribbled in his journal. Scepter, subject drift, memory collapse, all described as non-replicable anomalies. One line was underlined twice in red pen added after the leak. Subjects who persist past exposure window exhibit resistance to restructuring. Most transition to class null. No explanation of what class null meant, no follow-up, just a list of known agent casualties. Most had died in the field, some had never been found. Marcus's name wasn't on that list. But the last page told Leah everything she needed to know. If contact persists post-window, activate secondary protocol. Marked agents are considered non-compliant, silencing measures authorized. It wasn't just a cover-up. It was a kill order. It came with no return address. A plain brown envelope, creased at the corners, dropped into Leah's mailbox on a Tuesday morning. No stamps, no postmark. Someone had delivered it by hand. Inside, wrapped in tissue, was a single black USB drive. No markings, no branding. Just a scratched plastic shell and the faint smell of burned metal. She didn't plug it in right away. She sat with it for hours, hands trembling, stomach tight. When she finally slid it into her laptop offline, firewalled, battery only, there was one folder. No name. Just a timestamp, 412, 2001. Inside were 7 audio files. Each no more than 3 minutes long. Each Marcus's voice. The first opened with heavy breathing, like he was recording while on the move. Echo 9 isn't dead. The doors are sealed, but the generators are humming. This place is buried under a mile of forest, and still the air smells like ammonia and heat. The second file was quieter, calmer. There are 9 containment cells. 2 are breached. One's been welded shut from the outside. I don't know what they were doing here. I only know it's still alive. By the third recording, he sounded different. Slower. Words dragging. The signage is wrong. It's rearranged. I walked past the same corridor 3 times. It's like the building's folding itself. I don't know how to explain it. One file was corrupted, static layered over distorted whispers. It sounded like someone else, another voice layered just beneath his. saying the same words, a second too late. The final clip was nearly silent, just Marcus breathing, then a whisper. "I shouldn't be here. I see it now. This wasn't a search, it was a trap." Then a long pause. And just before it ends, "If this makes it to Leah, don't trust the official story. They buried it for a reason. They'll bury me too." She listened to that last part over and over again. And then she turned off the laptop, because she already knew where he'd been. And now she had to go there too. The Bitterroot Range stretches like a scar through western Montana dense forest, broken only by glacial basins and the occasional mining scar. Most locals don't hike there. Not past the first ridge. Not toward the southern slope. They say the trees grow too close together, the animals avoid it. They say you can hear the hum before you see anything. Marcus had traced his path there using decommissioned military maps and a fragment of a Department of Energy requisition form dated 1997, a black site, unnamed, listed only as Outpost Theta. Its coordinates placed it high above tree line, beneath the shadow of Mount Celestine. Officially, it was decommissioned in 1998. No further funding, no reported activity. But according to his notes, according to what Leah found in his journal, and later, on that USB there were signs of power draw as recent as 2001. Backup generators. Underground cabling rerouted through a weather monitoring station that hadn't sent data since '96. Locals told stories, quiet ones. Hunters who spotted lights in the woods long after midnight. Hikers who turned around after finding metal grates in the ground, still warm to the touch. One man claimed his dog wouldn't go near the ridge, stood shaking, teeth bared at nothing. The entrance wasn't visible from the trail. Marcus had found it by accident. A landslide had exposed a section of concrete flat, with rebar curled out like bones. Above it, in faded stenciling, "Do not enter, property of DOE." But the door wasn't locked. The hinges had been cut. Leah retraced his route days later. She parked the car at the trailhead and hiked 6 hours through shifting terrain. The trees bent unnaturally, like they were leaning toward the structure. When she reached the site, the concrete was still there, the same warning. But the entrance was gone. Not sealed, not hidden. Gone. Replaced by soil, freshly packed. The slope above it smooth like someone had erased it. She stood there in silence, wind brushing through dead pine needles, and swore she could hear it too. A low hum beneath her feet. And something deeper. Breathing. He called himself Elliot. No last name, no return address. The message came through Leah's burner email, an account she'd only shared once, buried in a comment thread under a scrubbed article about Marcus's disappearance. His subject line was simple: Crypsis wasn't for the public. The body of the email held just a phone number. She hesitated for 3 days before dialing. When she did, he answered on the first ring. "I worked containment for the CDC," he said, "but I didn't handle viruses from nature." His voice was tired, calculated, the kind of tone that came from decades of saying things no one believed. He wouldn't give his full name, but confirmed he'd retired in 1999, 2 years before Marcus vanished. "I was in charge of data review for bioanomaly reports. Anything we couldn't trace back to animal vectors came across my desk. Most were hoaxes, urban legends, but a few." He paused. "A few came from inside labs." Leah listened in silence as he told her about Crypsis, not as a containment protocol, but a suppression strategy, a way to bury incidents that couldn't be explained. Not because they were too dangerous, but because they were too engineered. These weren't just viral mutations. They had structure, purpose. Someone built them. She asked if Echo 9 was one of those sites. He didn't answer right away. "Montana," he said finally. "There were whispers. We weren't allowed to log anything west of the divide after '95, not even internal memos." He told her about a shipment, March 2001, moved under classified transport from a private contract, CDC oversight, no inventory. Just a bill of receipt marked Organism 4X destined for Echo 9. She asked what 4X meant. He said only 3 words before the line went dead. Self-replicating design. The next day, the number was disconnected, and Elliot was gone. Leah submitted a satellite image request through a private aerospace archive. It was a long shot. Most Cold War-era records had been digitized years ago, but access was heavily restricted. She used a fake company name and paid in crypto. When the files arrived, they came in a compressed folder, hundreds of high-resolution aerial scans from the Bitterroot Range, dated between 1999 and 2002. She filtered by timestamp, cross-referenced with Marcus's notes, matched them to the time window April 2001. 17 images were missing, each one spaced exactly 5 minutes apart. Each one would have shown the precise area where Marcus's SUV was last seen. There were no placeholders, no corrupted files, no metadata at all, just clean gaps as if the shots were never taken. She checked the logs. All other frames were intact. The satellite had been functional, no malfunctions reported, no lens damage, no cloud cover. When she contacted the archive for clarification, the curator's response was short. Frames removed by upstream handler. Reason: redaction for national security. Leah demanded documentation. They refused. She filed a formal request. 3 days later, her account was deleted. When she tried again with a different alias, she got a reply from a different address. One sentence: "Stop looking at the sky." But she kept going. She found a freelance cartographer who'd saved low-res previews of the original archive from a 2003 offline mirror. Most were blurry, pixelated, but only a shot taken at 2:41 a.m. April 12 showed something. Just a blur at the edge of the ridge. Heat signature, square structure. Then next frame gone. No record of who removed the others, no proof they ever existed. But in Marcus's journal, Leah found a note she hadn't noticed before. They can erase photos. They can't erase shadows. She printed the blurry image, marked the coordinates, and packed a bag. It was a pair of hikers who found Italy, June 2013. They weren't looking for anything, just cutting across a ridgeline near Black Pine, following an old game trail that hadn't seen boots in decades. But the forest changed as they moved west. The air thickened, the ground stopped crunching beneath their feet. And then they saw it. A clearing no bigger than a basketball court, perfect circle, charred earth black and cracked like dried blood, trees scorched halfway up the trunks, needles curled and falling in clumps, no burn path, no lightning scars, just a void. The center of the clearing held a twisted mess of metal, bent scaffolding, heat-warped rebar, melted cables tangled in a heap like veins. They took photos. One of them posted online. It got 10 likes before disappearing. The account was deleted the next morning. Local authorities were notified. They came, took statements, then left without touching a thing. No cleanup, no cordon, no follow-up. By the time Leah got there, 3 days later, the place was already fading. Moss creeping back in, the black softened by wind and time. But the smell remained. Burnt plastic, battery acid, and something else. Something sharp and metallic like scorched copper. She walked the edge of the circle and found a fragment half buried in the soil. A steel tag, no bigger than a dog tag, the words barely legible. Property of DOE, Class B asset, return upon retrieval. Back home, she cleaned it with rubbing alcohol. When the light hit it right, a string of numbers appeared, laser etched into the back. Coordinates. Only 3 digits off from where Marcus had disappeared. Whatever happened in that clearing hadn't been an accident. It had been an erasure. He called himself Rook. Not a name. A designation. Former civilian contractor, intelligence adjacent. Marcus's last known source before Echo 9. It took Leah 5 months to find him, through burner forums, dead proxies, and a survivalist bulletin board based in Idaho. She left a message in a thread titled, "Things You Regret Digging Up." he answered 2 weeks later. She met him in person in a mining shack off Highway 28, 3 miles from the nearest power line. His beard was overgrown, his eyes darted at every creek, but when she said Marcus's name, he froze. Dead? She didn't answer. He didn't need her to. He warned me, Rook said. Said if I saw him again, it meant they didn't get him fast enough. He poured black coffee into a cracked cup. No cream, no sugar. He was chasing something the rest of us were told to leave alone. Echo 9 wasn't just a lab. It was a filter, a place to hold what couldn't be explained and test what couldn't be contained. Leah showed him the USB. He didn't touch it. I told him not to go back, Rook whispered. That place, it isn't abandoned. It's dormant. There's a difference. She asked him what was inside. He looked toward the boarded window, then leaned in. They built something, grew it maybe, but it didn't stay in the walls, and they didn't shut it down. They just closed the door and pretended it never happened. Leah showed him the coordinates from the burn site. Rook barely glanced before nodding. That's where the leak started. She asked him one last question. Why, Marcus? Rook took a breath. Because he figured out the truth. He stood, grabbed a duffel bag, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back. Tell whoever's still looking, that place was never meant to be found. Then he vanished into the trees. Like a ghost. It came buried in a Congressional Archive Dump 3, 472 pages of heavily redacted PDFs, released after a FOIA challenge from a defense watchdog group. Most of it was boilerplate. Budget amendments, infrastructure proposals, outdated intelligence briefings. But page 2, 418 was different. Leah almost missed it. Just a single paragraph, blacked out from top to bottom except for 2 lines. Operational review pending Agent M. Hale. Containment status, authorized under National Security Clearance Level 9. No context, no agency listed, no dates. Clearance Level 9 didn't exist, at least not officially. The known federal system stopped at Level 5. Anything higher lived in the shadow. She flagged the document and reached out to the journalist who'd led the FOIA request. He called her back in 36 minutes. Voice low, words clipped. Don't send that page again. Why? She asked. Because 3 people who touched this dump already lost their jobs, and one of them's missing. He hung up. She printed the page anyway, taped it to the wall next to Marcus's journal. The memo confirmed what she'd suspected all along. Marcus hadn't just vanished. He'd been designated, marked, and contained. Whatever he saw, whatever he recorded, was important enough to trigger clearance protocols that didn't officially exist. Later that night, she stared at the memo under lamplight and saw something strange. The blacked-out section glimmered faintly under the bulb, just enough to catch a sliver of text where the redaction wasn't perfect. It said, Project Warden, a phrase she'd only seen once before in Marcus's notebook, written in tiny script next to a torn corner. She took a photo of the page. And the next morning, her house alarm tripped at 4:03 a.m. No doors opened, no windows broken. But the power went out. For 6 hours. The USB Marcus left behind always showed the same 7 audio files. Leah had listened to each one dozens of times, dissected every background sound, every exhale, every whispered pause, but she hadn't checked for hidden data. Not until a friend, a retired digital forensics specialist, offered to clone the drive for her. Encrypted sector, he told her, buried under the partition, not standard bureau tech. Someone wanted this to stay hidden. It took him 4 hours to crack it. The folder was titled Warden Remains. Inside were 39 images. They loaded slowly, each one worse than the last. Blurry photos of sterile white rooms, concrete walls, metal slabs, subjects strapped down, tubes running from arms, necks into machines that didn't look medical. Most had no faces, just smears where eyes should be, skin like melted wax, limbs too long, too thin. Each photo had a timestamp, all dated between August and October 2001. Months after Marcus was declared missing. In the corner of every image, a nameplate. Subject W4. Subject W7. Subject MH. Her breath caught. The image showed a figure seated in a chair, arms bound, face in shadow, but the posture was familiar, the tilt of the head, the curve of the shoulder. She zoomed in on the date. September 19, 2001. Marcus was still alive. Weeks after they told her he was dead. Her hands shook as she clicked through the rest. The final image showed an empty chair and a smear of blood across the lens. In the file name, Subject MH, null. She didn't know what null meant, but something told her it wasn't a classification. It was a warning. The call came from a small anthropology lab in Missoula. A bone fragment had been found by a fire crew doing post-burn assessment near the edge of the Bitterroot Range. They thought it belonged to an animal until someone spotted a filling embedded in the jaw. The fire had exposed a shallow grave, partial skeleton, scattered, charred around the edges. A single molar remained intact. Leah submitted a sample from Marcus's toothbrush. The lab ran the comparison twice. Match. The jawbone was his, but the rest wasn't. The femur recovered nearby was almost 5 inches longer than Marcus's last recorded medical chart. Not a growth anomaly. A complete mismatch. Different density, different structure. It didn't even appear fully human. The bone's cellular composition tested abnormally high for keratin deposits. One lab tech said it resembled modified growth tissue, like something designed to withstand trauma or evolve under it. The remains were tagged under a single file, Mesh-ident conflict. No official agency claimed the body. Leah pressed for more, sent copies to 3 labs. Only one responded and they included a warning. Do not submit this tissue again. It's marked Class 4 restricted. She asked what that meant. The email was deleted mid-reply. But what she knew was enough. Marcus had died there. Or something had. Something wearing his bones. The package was waiting on her doorstep, no postage, no label, just a padded envelope sealed with electrical tape. Inside, a thumb drive. 16 GB, no markings. She loaded it on an air-gapped laptop. 1 folder, 1 file. Sky 450, 6 night TIFF. The footage was drone captured. Night vision. Dated February 8, 2013, 10 days before the Bitterroot fire. The image showed the forest floor angled toward a ridgeline Leah recognized instantly. Echo 9. A clearing, 2 black vans, 4 men in hazmat suits, white suits with breathing rigs, helmets reflecting infrared. They moved in silence. One carried a case, another held what looked like a scanner, waving it slowly along the ground. Then, a hatch. Hidden in the earth, camouflaged, mechanical. It opened. The men went inside. The hatch sealed behind them. At the 10-minute mark, the footage cut to static. No exit, no return. She uploaded the footage to a private backup, sent a copy to a journalist friend. Within 48 hours, the video vanished. From the drive. From the cloud. Even from her offline storage. Erased like it never existed. Except for one frame she'd printed in time. Blurry, dark, but clear enough to see the insignia on the back of one hazmat suit. A black circle. And inside Iten eye. Wide open, watching. His name was Brandon Kell. 12-year Bureau veteran. Quiet, unremarkable. The kind of agent who never made headlines until he did. He'd been reassigned shortly after Marcus vanished. Internal Affairs moved him to desk duty in D.C. On paper, burnout. In whispers, he'd seen too much. 3 weeks after Leah's drone footage disappeared, Kell was found dead in a motel outside Alexandria. Gunshot wound to the head. Ruled suicide. But nothing about the scene made sense. The room had no signs of forced entry, yet Kell had checked in under a false name, registered with cash. No personal belongings except for a burner phone, a notebook, and a single piece of paper on the bed. 6 words, written in black ink. "They're not human anymore. I'm sorry." No fingerprints on the gun. No powder burns on Kell's hands. The hotel's security cameras went dark from 1 to 3:37 a.m., the exact window of death estimated by the coroner. Leah wasn't notified. She found out through a forum. A cryptic post under the name Deep Rest 87 simply said, "Another one gone, room 204. Ask about the note." She went there herself. The room had been cleaned, repainted, and rented again within 2 days. Too fast. Back home, she searched Marcus's journal, found Kell's name mentioned once circled, then connected by a red line to the word oversight. Brandon had been Marcus's last point of contact at the Bureau. He'd known what Echo 9 was. And someone had made sure he wouldn't talk. Leah printed the note, taped it beside the image of the hazmat suit. Both staring back at her. Both screaming the same thing. Whatever Marcus found out there, it wasn't over. It started with a line item. Buried in a 2002 appropriations report from the Department of Defense Section 43B. Classified allocation. Contingency biological response, 14.8 M. No attached project. No department ownership. But the next entry made her stomach drop. Unit activation, BCRU, 3, Montana Field Test, Echo 9. Biological Containment Response Unit. She searched every federal registry. Nothing. No mention of BCRU in CDC records, NIH funding, or Department of Homeland Security contracts. But on an archived military procurement server, Leah found a vendor name, Timon Technologies, a defunct contractor linked to classified DARPA trials in the late 90s. Their specialty, autonomous pathogen neutralization and experimental field suppression systems. She found a scanned invoice, handwritten at the bottom. Deployable in non-permissive terrain, no public interface. The BCRU wasn't medical. It was military. And it had been deployed to Echo 9. Leah kept digging. Every trail led to dead ends, domains suspended, emails bouncing back, contact numbers long disconnected. Then she got a ping. A back-channel message from someone using the handle Vector Null. No text, just a file. Encrypted, password protected. The password worked. Inside, schematics. Not of the lab. Of the suits. The same hazmat suits from the drone footage, only they weren't hazmat at all. Reinforced exoframes. Bio-sealed from the inside out. No zippers, no seams. Because what wore them wasn't supposed to come back. The specs called them operators. But in the margin, scribbled in pencil, one word stood alone. Retained. Leah printed the schematics, added them to the wall. BCRU-3 had gone into Echo 9. But nothing ever said it came out. The leak came from a secure inbox on a government relay server routed through half a dozen proxies, the kind used by whistleblowers who knew the cost of being found. The email was dated April 15, 2001, 3 days after Marcus Hale vanished. Subject line: Urgent, unsanctioned agent contact, Project W. It was addressed to 5 recipients, each listed only by initials: RM, DL, JF Black, T7, Command Theta. The body of the email was short, blunt. Containment protocol active. Agent Hale made unauthorized access to Tier 3 files referencing Project W. Recommend immediate suppression before civilian media breach. Initiate BCRU-3 intercept. Frame as natural disappearance. No confirmation to family. No trace to warden. No sign-off. No encryption tags. It wasn't written like a warning. It was a playbook. Leah stared at the screen. Her hand hovered over the mouse. No confirmation to family. They hadn't just lied. They had planned it. The file had been part of a larger cache leaked by someone calling themselves End Process. It was buried among hundreds of unrelated files. But this one had been renamed You Need to Know.m. There were no other details. Just one attachment. A PDF, redacted in thick black bars. Its title, Project W, Archival Summary, Defunct, 2001. She downloaded it. Every page was blank except one, a logo, blurred but still visible. A circle, an eye. And beneath it, Warden. Marcus had written the word in his journal 5 times, each in different sections, each underlined. Warden. The official line said Project Warden had been terminated in 1993, shut down under federal ethics review after a panel found discrepancies in biological testing methodology. But Leah found otherwise. Through archived budget requests, internal military communications, and one brief lawsuit sealed by executive order, she pieced together fragments. Project Warden was never about defense, it was about adaptation. A biotech initiative designed to create human subjects capable of withstanding extreme pathogen exposure, radiological, viral, synthetic. It wasn't about cures. It was about survival. The subjects had been real. Volunteers, prisoners, soldiers, all scrubbed from record. Some had lived, most hadn't. The ones who survived were classified under one label, type null. Not human, not infected, not stable. Marcus had found records that Warden didn't stop in 93. It had moved from government labs to private contractors, buried behind shell companies and rebranded trials. Echo 9 wasn't a relic. It was active. Still conducting trials. Still containing whatever had come out of Warden's broken machinery. One file she uncovered included a quote from an unnamed operative. "We built it to survive the worst, but it adapted beyond control. It doesn't obey, it persists." There were no more files after that. Only the logo. A circle, an eye, and a number beneath it. C. Marcus had been the 4th to go in. And, maybe, the first who saw what came back. It came folded in thirds, slipped between the pages of a manila folder Leah never requested. No return address, no note, just a thin document with the faded seal of the U.S. House Committee on Armed Services. Dated September 10, 2001. Subject line, Termination Directive, Project Warden. It was a memo, drafted by a junior congressional staffer for a closed-door subcommittee review. It referenced multiple sessions of classified testimony. Included in the margin. Recommendation: immediate decommissioning. All testing to cease. Biological remnants to be incinerated on site. The justification read like a confession. Findings conclude, Warden development has exceeded ethical, legal, and biological parameters. Subject drift confirmed. No viable oversight. Project is no longer under control of original directives. The tone was desperate, like someone was trying to put the fire out before it spread. But at the bottom, where the authorization signature should have been nothing. Blank. Unsigned. Not by accident. The metadata in the footer told her it had been opened, printed, and then archived, never filed. Then the next day happened. September 11, 2001. And any effort to shut down Project Warden vanished beneath the rubble of history. Leah stared at the memo until her eyes burned. Not just because of what it meant, but because someone had held this. Had tried to stop it. And failed. She checked the name of the staffer who drafted it, cross-referenced with congressional roles. Gone. No record of employment, no social media, no forwarding address. Erased. Just like Marcus. Just like all the others. Leah never wanted to be in front of a camera, but after months of silence, buried files, and the dead ends piling up like bodies, she agreed to the interview. A major cable news network, primetime, scheduled for Wednesday night. The producer assured her the segment was locked, taped, edited, ready. They'd even used drone footage, redacted documents, and the last image of Marcus framed next to his bureau credentials. Then, 4 hours before airtime, the story was pulled. Official reason: editorial standards conflict. Unofficially, the FCC had issued a citation against the station. $500, fine. for unauthorized distribution of restricted material. No explanation. Leah called the producer. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Line disconnected. She drove to the studio. Doors locked. Lobby dark. Not even a receptionist. By morning the segment was gone. Not shelved. Not archived. Deleted. The promo links redirected to a cooking show. The news anchor who'd conducted the interview posted a cryptic tweet before deleting her entire account. Some truths don't stay buried, but they'll try. Leah still had the raw footage, backed up offline, hidden in 3 separate drives. But she knew now this wasn't just a cover-up. It was still active. And whatever Marcus uncovered, someone was still protecting it. At any cost. It started as static. At 2:47 a.m. on a Thursday, a ham radio operator in northern Idaho picked up an encrypted pulse on an abandoned frequency 19.2 megahertz, long thought dormant since the Cold War. He thought it was interference, until it came again, clearer. Then a voice. Low, strained, familiar. "This is Hale. Repeat. This is Hale. They're still inside. Shut it down." The message looped once, then cut out. The operator posted it in a niche radio forum, asking if anyone else had heard it. Within the hour, the post was removed, his account deleted. But not before Leah saw it. Someone had screenshotted the thread, attached a download link to the original recording. She listened to it 50 times. It was Marcus. His voice, exactly as she remembered, worn, flat, calm but not broken. If the date stamp was real, the signal had been transmitted 6 days ago. 12 years after he vanished. 12 years after he was declared dead. She sent the audio to 3 engineers. They confirmed the metadata. There were no signs of fabrication. The transmission had come from a region just south of the Bitterroot Range, not far from Echo 9. The forest there was still cordoned off after a controlled fire. No crews seen, no equipment brought in, no cleanup, just a perimeter and silence. But the message kept playing in her head. They're still inside, whoever or whatever he meant. It wasn't over. Not for him. Not for her. There was no funeral, no procession, no folded flag. Just a plot in a federal cemetery outside Quantico. Marcus's headstone had been ordered by the Bureau in 2003. Granite, regulation size. But when Leah finally visited in the summer of 2014, something was wrong. The stone was blank. No name, no dates, no inscription. Just an empty slab of polished gray, reflecting the sky. She stood there in silence, the wind lifting her hair, as if even the ground didn't want to claim him. Then she noticed the second marker. Smaller, older, nestled beside his. It wasn't official, hand-carved. Edges worn. No name. Just one sentence. "We buried the truth to save the lie." She touched it gently. The stone was warm, like it had been placed recently. Like someone had come. To remember. To warn. Or to wait. She turned, ready to leave. And just for a second out past the fence, in the line of trees she saw movement. A figure. Tall. Still. Watching. Then gone. Just like Marcus. Just like the truth. This story was brutal. But this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.